meeting of the Planning and Development Board on 2nd March 2026. I will start with the evacuation procedure because we do have some guests in the building. If you discover a fire or hear a fire, we're not expecting any fires, so it will be a genuine alarm. Make your way out of the fire exits, one kind of close to there, or the way you came in. We form up on the car park. Please don't leave if the alarm does go off, because we've got a record of who's in the building. And so we've gone and sent firefighters in after people we think's in here that have gone home. Or I think normally some people have gone down the chip shop. So yeah, if you could just wait, if there is a fire alarm, it would be a genuine alarm. Just kind of nearest fire exit and then form up at area G, point G in the car park, which is literally just kind of there until the appropriate officer, which is that be yourself? Yeah, most probably, tells you that it's okay to leave. Okay. Apologies for absence of members away on official council business. We have a number of apologies this evening. We've got Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor Owen Phillips is subbing. Thank you, Owen. We've got Councillor Dave Humphreys and Councillor Davey is subbing there. And we have two other apologies that we haven't got subs for. I know one of them is last minute because Councillor Jennings is unwell and Councillor Simpson. We're happy to accept those apologies. Okay, thank you. Are there any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests of any items on tonight's agenda? Okay, I'll go with Councillor Dervix first and then Councillor Ridley.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a statement here, really. It's not really to say that I have an interest. I am one of the nearest neighbours to the leisure centre, and there is a report on that on agenda item 5G. I need to take this opportunity to say, during the development of this project, I've encouraged members of the public to take part in the consultations and to pass on any comments and concerns to officers and councillors being made to me. Whilst doing this, I've been diligent in explaining to people that while I am a member of the planning board, it would be inappropriate to express my own opinions outside the board meetings. After checking with officers, they've confirmed that I'm still able to take part in the discussion and determination of this application. And I will continue to check this whenever there is any determination to be made. I'd like to put that on record so that nobody can turn around and say that we haven't been transparent in any way. Thank you.
Councillor Dervix. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. It's just item number 5E. It's in relation to the application for Endurance Park. I know it's not a determination, but I am a member of Dordon Parish Council, so effectively I just wanted to note an interest in that.
Thank you very much. I'm looking at the, there's probably as many as I thought there was going to be. So I think what we'll do is we'll go through the agenda as published. Sometimes what we do in the reason I ask questions, there's lots of people for one particular item that's later on in the agenda, we'll bring it forward so those people can go home should they wish to do so. But it's probably a spread of people. So we'll go through the agenda as published. A number of people have registered to speak this evening. For those that have registered to speak, as we get to the item, what I'll do is I'll ask you to come down to the speakers kind of area there, and then Sophia will give you the rules around public speaking. So we have a number to do that. So we'll do that as we go through. But without further ado, I'll move straight onto the agenda. Has everybody seen and had a look at the copy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of February?
So moved.
Someone's happy to move that? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Then we'll move on to the planning applications. Do you want to take the first one? application 0579.
Yeah, the first application, Jacob will be presenting this one.
Okay, Jacob.
Good evening, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce application PAP 2025-0579 at 23 Drayton Heath. This application is referred forward as the land is owned by the Borough Council. Drayton Court is a pair of 2 blocks of flats located across from Green in Oxford. Flat 23 is a ground floor flat which fronts the road and the green. This application seeks planning consent for the formation of a new step-free access to the flat. The existing window marked by the X will be replaced with a new front door, and a ramp will be constructed along the front of the property and leading to the pavement. This is required as the tenant will be undergoing surgery and will be left in a wheelchair, unable to access their property. The proposal is considered to meet the development plan, and we have recommended approval subject to standard conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or any comments from members?
Just move the recommendation to grant it, Chair.
So I've got moved and seconded. Any other proposals? No? Okay, so we'll vote on that. All those in favour to grant? It's carried. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is application 0320, and that is the land to the rear of Ralph Crescent in Spring.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm presenting an outline application for 283 dwellings on land to the rear of Ralph Crescent, Kingsbury. This is an outline application with all matters reserved with the exception of vehicular access. As you'll see from the agenda, the application was brought before members in September last year for information, and it now returns for determination. I'll begin with an overview of the site and the proposal before turning to the key considerations, which is greenbelt policy, housing land supply, landscape, character, highways, drainage, ecology, heritage, and finally the planning balance and recommendation. The site extends to 14.7 hectares. It's mainly arable land immediately northwest of Kingsbury. It lies within the West Midlands Greenbelt. The M42 forms the west northern boundary. The A51 lies towards the northeast, and residential properties in Ralph Crescent and Bracebridge Road lie to the south, with woodland, scrub and the River Tame bordering the west of the site. The application itself seeks consent for 283 houses with 50% affordable housing, together with extensive public open space, landscaping and a green central corridor. If I show you this plan here, this shows an indicative layout of the scheme, with the residential element being in this colour, the main point of access off Tamworth Road, and the open space down towards the river corridor to the southwest of the site. As indicated, access is proposed off the junction, a new junction with Tamworth Road. That will be accompanied with a toucan crossing and a package of pedestrian and cycle improvements, and an emergency access to the south eastern part of the site. As members will see from the agenda, there's been 160 representations received, including a 60-person signed petition. In terms of the assessment of the application, from a planning policy perspective and Greenbelt perspective, as indicated, it's in Greenbelt. However, under the framework, the National Planning Policy Framework, paragraph 155 introduces the concept of grey belt. There was a previous study which identified about parcels and assessed parcels of land within Greenbelt. This proposal has been assessed under the new framework and emerging evidence which indicates that Kingsbury is not a large built-up area, and actually the site itself does not strongly satisfy the key Greenbelt purposes. Therefore, in this instance, the site qualifies as grey belt. Paragraph 155 then requires you to assess whether the proposal complies with 4 limbs of the framework. The first being whether it qualifies as grey belt and wouldn't fundamentally undermine the green belt in the wider area. Officers consider that it does not in this instance. The second point is that whether there's a demonstrable unmet housing need. As the council can no longer demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, it meets this test as well. The third point is that it is whether it's in a sustainable location with improvements delivering safe and suitable access. In this instance, on the edge of Kingsbury and with improvements that I'll consider later, it meets this test as well. And finally, relating to residential development, there's a requirement to meet the golden rules, which are in paragraphs 156 and 157. This requires a requirement of 50% affordable housing, new green space and infrastructure contributions. In this instance, it meets those requirements as well. So with those 4 limbs, officers consider and conclude that the proposal represents appropriate development within Greenbelt. I'll move on to the other issues then. I've already mentioned about the housing land supply. The recent appeal decision at Wharton indicated that we do not have a 5-year supply of housing. And therefore, the tilted balance is engaged as required through paragraph 11D of the NPPF, where there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development and a tilted balance. Through this, this balance goes towards approval unless the harms significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Other issues include character and appearance. Turning to landscape matters, the site forms part of the urban fringe and is influenced in this area by the M42 and A51, an existing residential development. The landscape and visual impact assessment considers that there will be adverse effects, but these will be localised. These effects will be reduced through planting and landscaping and green infrastructure. While there is conflict here, the proposal includes landscape conservation and the harm is regarded as moderate. In terms of highways and access, the Highway Authority original concerns have been addressed through an updated survey, revised access design and enhanced pedestrian and cycle measures. So what we have here, this shows the access out onto Tamworth Road. There's a two-con crossing, which allows access onto the other side of the road, then pedestrian improvements all the way down into Kingsbury Village. As well here, there is visibility both looking northwards, where the speed limit is 50 miles an hour, as well as southwards as well, where it is 30 miles an hour. As members can see from the recommendation, there's a final consultation response awaited from Warwickshire Highways. However, they have indicated that from a highway perspective, that the proposal is unlikely to be unacceptable. It's likely to be acceptable, and there's no severe cumulative impacts that would justify refusal. From a flood risk and a drainage point of view, it's within flood zone 1. The lead local flood authority raises no objections to the proposal. In terms of ecology and biodiversity, there's a comprehensive ecological survey submitted with key habitats, woodland scrub, bats, etc., to be retained, with reptiles considered to be absent, otter and water vole checks, which are covered through conditions, and the scheme will deliver over 10% biodiversity net gain. And this is supported by a 30-year habitat management and monitoring plan. In terms of additional information, if I go back to the master plan, originally the open space was indicated underneath power lines which stretch across the scheme. The open space is now proposed to the west of the development, next to the open space, giving it more breathing space. I talked about the overhead lines, and there's guidance on these from National Grid. As you can see from the display in front of you, this is taken from guidance from National Grid. It shows a similar sort of position of a linear route through the development and open space as we've got within the master plan. There's obviously an offset here in terms of where the residential properties are. As you can see from the master plan, that is a similar sort of design here. So you've got a linear area of open space that goes through the development where the power lines are going. So from a National Grid perspective, the development follows those similar lines. In terms of affordable housing, the proposal will require 50% affordable. This can be a range of dwellings, including discounted market housing of 20 or 30% reductions, rented properties, potentially first-time buyers, etc. The legal agreement will pick up a cascade approach of this. And these details, if necessary, can be reported back to members if necessary. You'll see in the agenda that there's a section 106 element and infrastructure with a comprehensive package of details. 50% affordable housing, nearly £1 million towards education, 600,000 towards bus service improvements, off-site sports, recreation and open space, total contributions totaling nearly £2 million, rights of way libraries, road safety education and biodiversity monitoring contributions. These all meet the tests of obligations. Unfortunately, though, the NHS and police contributions do not meet those tests and are not SIL compliant. So in terms of planning balance that we need to do, we've got a tilted balance that we need to assess here. The proposal will deliver substantial benefits, most notably the dwellings themselves, 283 dwellings, 142 affordable properties. In terms of the identified harms, these relate to landscape impact, loss of best, most versatile agricultural land, conflict with the settlement hierarchy. These carry moderate weight. However, the benefits, particularly housing delivery, affordability, infrastructure, and compliance with the golden rules, carry substantial weight. Accordingly, the adverse impacts do not outweigh significantly and demonstrably the benefits, and therefore the recommendation is that the board be minded to grant the outline permission, subject to the completion of the legal agreement and a final no objection response from the Highway Authority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, councillor, what was it? The specific act? We've got some speakers.
I was just going to ask,
Okay, good.
just for clarity on something, is that all right?
Yeah, of course it's
Do you want to wait?
No, good.
Thank you, Chair. So I know you said that you're waiting for the highways. Just for me, I'm just wondering what the benchmark is for their decision on the Trinity Road in particular, because there have been fatalities on that road. And I'm just wondering what the benchmark would be, if you know, or I'm not sure if you know because you're not obviously highways, but it's just really to make that point that if you're local, we know that there's been fatalities and you know, more congestion is obviously going to put that road into more of a difficult situation. But if you've got an answer, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a few points there, isn't there? There's the amount of traffic and the safety of the access. In terms of the amount of traffic, they've looked at highway, both the county council have looked at the numbers and considered that the road and the access is sufficient to cater for the numbers of additional traffic that's coming in with the improvements that they've got there. The scheme includes, this is the access, it includes a right filter lane. So using the existing highway, there will be roads, the road coming from Tamworth, people can go straight ahead on there. There'll be a right filter lane into the scheme. And there will be still the road back and into Kingsbury, road out from Kingsbury, going northwards. And there'll be a priority junction there. They've looked at that access, and from a safety point of view, which you're alluding to, from injuries, etc., and fatalities, they consider that is safe from their perspective. There is a road safety audit, which is to be considered. That will pick up things such as potentially where if there's a need for bollards near the access to stop pedestrians crossing, to filter pedestrians down to this Toucan crossing that they've got now. It's likely though the access will reduce traffic speeds along there, and the Toucan crossing will reduce traffic speeds, and therefore reduce potential harm to car drivers, pedestrians, cyclists. The accesses and the improvements shown on here will segregate pedestrians and cyclists as well. So there'll be improvements there. Without knowing the fatalities, we obviously need to think about pedestrians, cyclists, non-motorised, people using the facilities as well as cars. Highways have looked at it and they consider that it is safe from that perspective.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm gonna just check because we had 3 speakers down, but I'm not sure because Mark Kemp's not online and you've tried to contact him,
Contacted me, he's not responding.
not responded yet. So it's Joan Worthington here. Right, Joan we've got, and it's Joey Macken here. So Joan, it looks like yourself and you've got all 3 minutes. So you want to just come down and then we've got Daniel Ramirez. Daniel, yeah.
Where will be there?
So now just here, see at the speakers, just sit there and then you press the green button. When just touch the middle where it says push. Yeah. Sophia, did you want to explain the public speaking?
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to speak from the time you start speaking. I'll start the stopwatch. I'll remind you at the 2-minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding. And I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Right. Kingsbury doesn't have the infrastructure for an influx of 500 plus more residents and cars. That is roads, we've got 1 road, GPs already full, schools are full and they've already objected strongly. There's a lot of anger locally that you're considering such a large development. Steve Reed, the housing minister, said on ITV Good Morning in October, house builders should be charged a levy to provide infrastructure for roads, schools and GPs by planning departments, otherwise development should not go ahead. Greenbelt or farmland, once gone, is gone forever. The oxygen barrier we have from the M42 pollution will no longer exist. Farming Today in November quoted a cross-party committee that said productive farmland should be protected as housing targets have risen by 50%. This threatens agriculture and we could see a future food security crisis as a result. There must be other brown and grey sites in Warwickshire that could be used. And Mr. Collinson saying that moderate harms will outweigh the benefits. It's not moderate harm if you're living in Kingsbury. We don't know how we will cope with so many new people, cars, children in the schools, and planning have not mentioned the local infrastructure apart from that 1 road. They've not mentioned GPs, schools. As far as the green belt goes, how many, and I'd like to see if you've got an answer to this, does anybody on the board know how many of the 300,000 empty properties in England are in Warwickshire? Because if we use some of those, it would mitigate the need for so many huge housing estates. And then just this week, the NFU conference in Birmingham said that food security is part of national security. We should prioritise food production as vegetable crops are reducing in all national areas.
1 minute remaining.
These are arable fields that he's trying to build on. This could risk hyperinflation, according to them. And this Kingsbury site is part of 4 farmers' fields that the developers have their eye on. And as my history teacher used to say, the one thing we learn from history isn't we don't learn from history. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, if you just stay there a minute. No, so this is an opportunity where members get to ask any questions of the speaker. Are there any questions or comments that any members wish to make? No? Okay, yeah.
Well, I'd like to just say, please reject the proposal, because I'd like you to ask us how many houses we could cope with in Kingsbury. The answer is we can't.
Thank you. I should have said, and you should have on your desk, there's also a statement that Councillor Andy Jennings has sent in. Unfortunately, Andy had planned to be here, but he's unwell. So there's a statement that Councillor Jennings has sent in prior to this. Okay, and next speaker is Daniel Ramirez. I'd like to come down to the speaker chair, please. And Sophia, away you go.
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock when you start speaking. I'll give you a reminder at 2 minutes that you've got 1 minute remaining.
Good evening. Thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak on the development proposals at Kingsbury today. My name is Dan Ramirez. I'm a planning manager at Gladman, who's the applicant. I'd firstly like to thank officers, particularly Andrew Collinson, for all their hard work in getting the planning application to board today. Some members may be familiar with this site. It was considered as a safeguarded option in a draft version of the local plan, but was ultimately discounted. Part of the site was also safeguarded the HS2 Birmingham to Leeds branch, St Albans Council, thereby removing this constraint. Members will be aware of the housing crisis and the changes to national planning policy made by government aimed at increasing housing delivery. If approved, the application for 283 new homes will provide a meaningful contribution towards the council's 5-year housing land supply. Government has also introduced the concept of grey belt. Gladman welcomes and supports the officer's conclusion the site is grey belt, and also highlight the applicant's commitment to 50% affordable housing, provision of substantial areas of open space, sustainable transport measures in line with grey belt golden rules. In formulating development proposals, Gladman has given careful consideration to the site's context and constraints. The proposal includes a central open space corridor that links with more natural green space on the periphery towards the River Tame and Thistlewood Brook. New play space and trim trail is proposed, which will be accessible to new residents and surrounding residential areas alike. Significant improvements to cycling and pedestrian facilities are proposed along Tamworth Road, linking the site to schools and facilities towards the centre of Kingsbury. I am pleased to confirm, subject to conditions and/or planning contributions, there are no in principle objections from statutory consultees. All technical issues associated with this site have been resolved. National planning policy requires this application to be determined within the tilted balance, where planning applications should be approved unless the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. In this regard,
We've got 1 minute remaining.
the adverse impacts of development of the site are few and slight. The officer's report identifies conflict with policies LP2 settlement hierarchy, LP14 landscape and loss of agricultural land as matters weighing against the grant of planning permission. Weighing in favour of approval are economic, social and environmental benefits, including construction employment, increased local expenditure, biodiversity net gain, infrastructure improvements and notably provision of new homes, including the 50% affordable housing. The proposal will provide around £4 million of financial contributions for various community infrastructure schemes, which will be secured through legal agreements. Gladman's view is clear that the benefits of granting planning permission outweigh any harm associated with the development proposals. As such, I would invite respectfully members to approve this outline planning application. I'm happy to answer any questions members may have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? Okay. No. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. Andrew, is it worth us reading out Councillor Jen's statement?
Please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll do that now.
Could read out what
Yeah. Statement from Andy Jennings says, unfortunately, illness prevents me from attending tonight's meeting and apologise for my absence. I'm grateful to the board members who attended the site visit at the weekend and hope the visit enabled them to appreciate the impact of such a large development would have on Kingsbury. However, as one of the local members and a resident of the village, I am perhaps better able than others to understand the likely effect of the proposal. Knowing the areas I do, and having read the officer's report and attended the site visit, I have several concerns. These include the impact on an already stretched local services, in particular the village schools and access to GP services. The Pear Tree GP surgery serves not only Kingsbury, but also the neighbouring Dosthill part of Tamworth, as well as nearby communities in North Warwickshire, and existing patients already wait several weeks for an appointment to see a doctor. This can only worsen with the building of 283 additional homes. Ecological concerns. Buzzards, skylarks, muntjacs and badgers can all be seen at the site, while bats nest there as well as in the lofts of some of the houses in the neighbouring Ralph Crescent. This end of Kingsbury has issues with flooding and in addition already experiences low water pressure. I also have serious concerns relating to the highway capacity and road safety. Speed surveys carried out when I was local county councillor highlighted two particular problematic locations where average speeds are consistently higher than the 30-mile-an-hour limit. One of these being in the current build-up approach to the village next to the northern junction of Ralph Crescent and close to where the new development is planned. In recent months and years, there's been a noticeable increase in HGV traffic passing through Kingsbury, something that is likely to grow further, and with the development of commercial units at Ascot Drive near Dosthill, of which the board members will be aware. This can only make the access point onto the A51 from the planned development more dangerous. The A51 through neighbouring Dosthill is lined with speed cameras installed by Staffordshire Highways, where they're extremely effective at ensuring drivers remain below 30 miles an hour. The very same busy road through Kingsbury has no such cameras, and speeds are noticeably much higher than in Dosthill, a regular concern of residents. As those members who were on the site visit observed, where the A51 passes the point of the proposed single access into and out of the planned development, the current speed limit is 50 miles an hour. For the reasons above, I ask the board to refuse the application, but should members be inclined to grant consent, I would ask that serious consideration be given to pushing the 50 mile an hour speed limit back in the direction of Dosthill, closer to the hamlet of Cliff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's from Councillor Jens, who was at the site visit with us on Saturday. Okay, shall we move into the debate on this one? Do you have any comments? Councillor Hayfield, Councillor Parsons, and then Councillor Hayden Phillips.
My gut reaction to this is to want to oppose it. Many of us who've been councillors for Greenbelt areas have spent our political careers trying to defend the Greenbelt around our settlements. And I think it's a very unfortunate sleight of hand by the current government to come up with this concept of grey belt, because it effectively they're saying, well, we still defend the green belt, of course, but now we're going to consider this land grey belt, and actually it's okay in the grey belt. I fear that if we use this, it will go to appeal, and the current range of sort of decisions from inspectors is this as strong as a very high probability that it will be granted on appeal. So I think we have a really difficult choice. If we grant consent, we're more likely to be able to influence the detail of this application. And if we refuse it, and the inspector just grants it. So, I mean, I think I know where I have to go on this. I just don't want to go there.
Thank you, Councillor Hayfield. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have to agree in many respects with Councillor Hayfield. I think this situation that we are in here has actually been there for some considerable time. I don't think it simply comes with the current government. That's part of where we are with planning at the moment. I've got concerns about this. I've got concerns about in particular, the 106 agreement here. It does seem odd, that the development of this size, nearly 300 houses, that there is no request for funding for education. I don't know quite how that is going to work out. I think it's also odd that there is no request for NHS funding. Again, the 300 houses is going to impact on the actual the GP's practice there. I don't see how it cannot, and indeed, on the hospitals which the GP practice feeds to. So I think really there is some considerable problem here with the 106 agreement. I think this also has an impact on the social housing and the affordable housing. It seems to me that the 106 agreement, this aspect of the mix of social and affordable housing needs looking at. I can say that a development in the community of Polesworth, where I live, the affordable housing has actually worked very well with the discounted housing provision at Pooley Lane housing estate. And that has benefited both first-time buyers and indeed people who've wanted to move because they find themselves on their own or whatever and need some help there. So should we come to take the position that Councillor Hayfield has sort of stated there, which in essence I agree with, I think we need this 106 agreement and the agreement about the mix of social and affordable housing to come back here to be given real consideration, because I think there are problems here which are not being looked at. As a final point, I did attend a site visit. The speeds of the traffic that I observed, very little was below 50 miles an hour. A lot of it seemed to be above. I absolutely agree with Councillor Jens. The 30-mile-an-hour limit, if this site is passed, needs to be pushed further back along the Tamworth Road, well clear of the entrance to this site, because that's going to be very difficult to exit. I know from past experience with highways that not all accidents can be prevented by engineering solutions. Sometimes accidents occur because of unforeseen circumstances and ill-considered choices by drivers. That does happen. But there is a real need to reduce speed on what will be the access if this development goes ahead. So those are my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Parsons. Councillor Hayden Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. I first up, I think you're taking what Councillor Parkin has said. I suppose firstly I should say that I am a member of Kingsbridge Parish Council, and I've not been in attendance when this has been discussed, and so I've had no input into that through the Parish Council. And I apologise, I wasn't at the site visit, I was unwell, but I do know this area. I know Kingsbury really quite well. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that I can't find a planning motion to move against it. Yeah, because we have to find a planning reason, and I can't find it difficult to sort of be able to do that, to be able to sustain that planning motion. But I am concerned about the speed of the traffic on the highway there. I'm concerned that they talk about the infrastructure, but they seem to be putting pressure on the infrastructure and adding nothing to it. And I always find it strange when developers say that they're giving you a green area. They take away your green belt and give you a green sort of playing field. I'm concerned also about certainly concerned about the pressure on the doctors. As someone who lives in the adjacent village, who depends on the doctors like everyone else around in the area, Hurley and Woodend and Kingsbury, Piccadilly, as has been said, 2 or 3 hour wait for 2 or 3 hours to get to the doctor, weeks to sort of get an appointment. They're already under pressure now, and the amount of pressure this is going to put on them is ridiculous. Also, I mean, most of us know the bus service is non-existent. I mean, without vehicles, although Kingsbury is reasonably well served with buses, it's not that well served. Like most of our areas in this area, buses are few and far between. So, Chair, I really am concerned about this, and I find it difficult to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Wapples, and then Councillor Bisley and Councillor Bev.
Thank you, Chair. I must admit, I have to agree with all of the comments that have been made. I was going to bring up, as Councillor Parsons had said, about the schools and NHS facilities particularly. And my other particular point I was going to make is we've sat tirelessly in this chamber talking about the roads that feed all of that area, and all of our areas feed into the A5, the M42, all of that area that is a problem area. And this is only going to contribute to that. So again, another issue really, that no matter which way you go, it's still going to cause problems. So for me, I agree, it's difficult to find a planning objection reason, but for me, it's a difficult one, a really difficult one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ridley, Councillor Bell, then Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. I think as a council, we found ourselves in a perfect storm. I congratulate the speaker, the local resident, who spoke with eloquence and passion about what she perceives to be unnecessary additions to her village. We are, unfortunately, we have our housing year supply, which is not at our 5-year, which we need it to be, to avoid speculative applications such as this. And I think tonight we'll see other speculative applications. It puts us in a very difficult position. It also puts us in a difficult position because the NPPF has changed, whereby we now have to look at green belt actually being grey belt, not serving a certain purpose for which green belt is there for, previously developed land and certain other conditions which apparently this site sort of like would meet the criteria for being developed. There are also a number of other reasons, planning reasons, waiting lists. We have to, as a board, approve it. But like my other colleagues in the chamber, I'm also concerned about the traffic, the lack of contribution towards education and doctors. And I would ask if there was a facility for us to be able to bring that 106 agreement back to this board, where we can actually look at the 50% affordable, how we can actually hone that to ensure that the benefit of the housing that we deliver is maximised for the type of housing that we require. Certainly across this chamber, I've heard before about the need for bungalows, the need for affordable housing. Obviously, it fits in with the golden rules for the 50%, but that stretches across the whole of that criteria. That would be first-time buyers, shared ownership, social rent. So I really do want us to ensure that we get it right in relation to our Housing 106 contributions and how we can maximise those benefits. If that's something that perhaps we can look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is going to be a common theme. I feel much the same as the speakers have already spoken. I went on the site visit, and I must say I was very concerned about the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic on that road. However, I do think having a crossing there will slow the traffic down slightly, and certainly that needs to happen. And I absolutely agree that one of the conditions must be that the 50-mile-an-hour limit is moved away. So there's plenty of 30-mile-an-hour before you come to the crossing way out of the village. It would be great to be able to refuse this application, and a year or so ago we might have been able to do that. We are bound by two things which are not within our control, two parts of the national planning policy framework, which are going to push us into one direction for this application. And one is, you've heard about it, it is no longer green belt as we know it. It is now reclassified as grey belt, which gives us very little control. If it was green belt, it would have been so much easier to deal with. And the other one is the 5-year housing supply, which we don't have at the moment. And for many of the reasons beyond our control, we don't have it. And when you've not got a 5-year housing supply, you've got no protection against a planning appeal, and it will be approved. And as someone's already said, at least we could have some control if we approve this. If we don't, it could be approved from somebody in Bristol with
with no conditions that we want on there. So with some reluctance, a lot of reluctance, I'm going to have to support the recommendation to approve this. But again, just echoing what everyone says, I would like to see the 106 agreement come back to this board. And I would also want to see the 50% affordable housing makeup come back to this board so that we can look at that and agree it. And I don't think it's in the condition, but the moving of the 50-mile-an-hour limit within the conditions. Thank you, Chair. It's not a great decision.
Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you. I'm reluctant to actually say anything now because everything that all my concerns have already been covered. But I was at the site visit, and one thing that really did seem essential to me was the speed limit. Standing at the side of that road waiting to cross, and to realise that we're going to have a more complicated junction and a crossing coming across there, which is still in the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, just seems like a mistake to me. And I would not want to see this going ahead without some sort of condition to move that, to put in a traffic regulation order to move the speed limit further away from the village, further towards the cliff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyone, Councillor Fowler, and then Councillor Owen Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't able to attend the site visit, but it's been interesting to listen to local members in that area. And I have to say, Mr. Chairman, that like Councillor Hayfield, I was reading this and I kept reading it, and the more I kept reading it, I just want to refuse this. Looking at what the Kingsbury Parish Council and its residents have been saying, I so want to, but when I listen to, and I have to agree, that we are in a rock and a hard place. We've got the government now looking at green becoming grey areas, and we know that if we refuse this, it will go to appeal and they will win. And I agree about the infrastructure as I was looking through it all. And again, with the 106 agreement and 50% housing, and of course with the speed, I couldn't disagree with anything that anybody's said rather. And it is with a heavy heart that I am going to have to support this, knowing that because it's a grey belt now, it will go to appeal and they will win. Thank you.
Councillor Owen Phillips.
Yes. Sorry, because I wasn't. Something not into the question. I don't know. I apologise if the notes. Because I'm still going to have a chance to read all the notes. The threshold of harm, doesn't the fact that it has an impact on local facilities and things like that, or harm on the community, does that count as a threshold of harm? Chair, question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good one. If we look at though the Wharton appeal, which considered a landscape harm, a harm to settlement hierarchy, and infrastructure, and that wasn't that didn't have similar sort of benefits to this. That didn't outweigh the harm, didn't outweigh the benefits of the scheme. So it's similar here in this instance. Each one you look at its merits. There is, as the report mentions, there is settlement hierarchy harm, there is landscape and visual harm, there's a loss of best most versatile agricultural land as well. But those don't outweigh the benefits of the scheme here, and they need to clearly outweigh them. Clearly.
Just so raising the amount of people going to the being submitted to surgery potentially by 3.3, about 4%. That an increase in waiting time surgery doesn't count as a substantial. So I'm just nitpicking, but it's just done.
In terms of infrastructure, there's a couple of points. NHS, we requested advice from the National Health Service on contributions and hadn't received a response at the last appeal, the Wharton appeal. It was their requests are very generic and don't meet the community infrastructure levy requirements. They're not SIL compliant, and therefore we can't request them because they need to be specific, directly related to the development. They're not here. We can only really ask for contributions of buildings rather than people. The people will come, or doctors will come from the additional residents from the estate. The other point as well, just while on infrastructure, is there is a requirement for education of £1 million. I know it's been mentioned there isn't. There's £1 million towards education contributions.
Yeah, I did follow up. So I'm not trying to picky and argue, but I'm just trying to sort of like format. So we can't put, even if we put the houses there, we're using the build it will come methodology, aren't we? So put more houses there, we'll qualify for more GPs. Is that sort of the methodology behind that thinking? So the way it works.
Um,
I know obviously what's about funding, I'm just being clear.
In terms of the funding through a planning application, we get requests from people, infrastructure providers, and from that we have to assess whether they're still compliant. In this instance, we haven't had a request from the NHS. Saying that, the requests that we have received on other developments from the NHS haven't met the tests.
We don't on this one, do we? So the other question is on the school is the high school, secondary school, should I say? So it's high school. I won that. Is oversubscribed by 115 students. Is that, and we're potentially increasing the village by 600 to 700 people? I don't have children. That works out at some of the maths on that one. Doesn't that meet any threshold for harm to the community?
Well, we've got £1 million towards education contributions.
Okay.
That will mitigate that harm, so they'll provide additional classroom facilities for those additional children.
So just saying, so okay, I don't want to argue with you, so those ask the question. Because it's the obviously, you know, get £1 million and get a school to appear, but it's just trying to what's it. So can we request that the NHS have a look at this and tell us what? Because my point is, using this as a case study, is we are building. This affects my village, Wood End, and Hurley, and Piccadilly, and the surrounding area. We were putting houses in other areas, and we're increasing the burden on a very, very small surgery. Are we taking all that into account? Does that not apply to this one building? Because I just think the responsibility of the board is to take a global view. That's the point of this representation, or like I said, there's no point at all. So
It's a point, and one that we've taken up already, but we've had no response. We can't go and knock on the door, sit on the table waiting for a response from the NHS. We've done it, the applicant has done it, and we've had no response. What I would caveat is the responses that we've had historically from the NHS, they don't meet the requirements.
Could I also count the responsibility of this board is to consider the planning application in front of us. Yeah. We can't fix the woes of the world, unfortunately, as much as we may like to.
Yeah.
And a lot of
at the same time, we just sit here going, oh, you know, but we don't interest around the edges a bit, do we?
And you've heard people's frustration. We have the infrastructure debate on a regular basis around many applications. And as Mr. Conson has said, unfortunately, you know, we use that in the water while on the bill, and we got overruled. As Councillor Hayfield has said, we lost that bit. Okay, Councillor Parsons.
If I may come back, Mr. Collins has just mentioned £1 million for education. I can't find it on the 106 agreement. I'm sure Mr. Collins knows where it is. But,
yeah, it's in the table. So under, so we're looking at the table on page 24.
Yeah,
and it says Warwickshire County Council infrastructure, and it's hidden. So it says education contributions £996,470.
Right, sorry for being thick.
No, I had to search for it as well.
Yeah.
That way.
So for clarity, that's page 24, where you've got the breakdown of those contributions. Councillor Watts.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a quick one, just to say thank you to the officers, because this is a really difficult, particularly difficult. I know you've had quite a few particularly difficult ones. And I know that you're just reporting for us the balance of what is the legal sides of it. And I know that's really difficult. It's really difficult for us in the chambers to make that decision, but it must be equally difficult and frustrating for you guys to, you know, present this, you know, when you know which way it's going. So just thank you, because I know this must be really difficult for you. So thanks.
Well, I'm just trying to give you the information that you have, so you make an informed decision at the end of the day, and the right information in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or thoughts or views or anything any other member of the planning board would like to make? Okay, so we have a recommendation for approval. I would like to just pick up on the points that were made earlier around the section 106, and should this be approved, and the road concerns around the 50 mile an hour, etc. And I think, sorry?
Affordable housing.
Yeah, and the affordable house. So that's the breakdown of the 106 money, the affordable housing, and if it is approved, we would want those to come back to this board so that we retain control over what it does look like, assuming the assumption that you'll get approval, but we'll come to that in a moment. And also the speed concerns. Whilst I think those on site visit, we thought having a Pelican crossing there would slow people down. Actually, it would be nice if that 30 mile an hour was pushed much further up the road, so that they're in a 30 mile an hour zone a long way before the entrance.
Sorry, Tim, can I just ask for clarification? I know you've gone on a long time now. Do we have authority over that to ask for that, to some traffic calming to be put in to move the speed limit? I mean, if it's no good asking for it if we can't do it. I mean, reluctantly, if we can do something, then I'm reluctantly have to support it for the reasons this has been said. But this is cowardly just to abstain.
So I don't believe we can tell the Highways Authority that they have to do it. What we can do is engage with the new county councillor and raise those concerns and actually have that, because we know it's we know the speed's regularly kind of broken there or exceeded, should I say. So I think what options do we have? It's kind of
I think it's a reasonable request as a condition. Something we discussed with the applicant and the Highway Authority about traffic speeds, etc. With a traffic regulation order, you try and wonder, is there going to be much opposition to it? And certainly listening to you all tonight, the opposition would come from councillors and from residents, but I think there would be support actually extending that traffic regulation order from and extending the 30 mile an hour zone towards Cliff. So it could be done as a planning condition, and that meets the tests of a planning condition.
okay. I think if that could go in as well as the 106 coming back and the other concerns. Looking at what the residents are, I do find it arguing that from an NHS perspective, from a doctor's surgery perspective, we don't get that requirement from them to say, because we have this conversation all the time about the impact on facilities, not just the road network, but schools, shops, etc., and doctor's surgeries. And it just seems staggering that they haven't come back and said, yes, we won't, because as mentioned, I don't think in the time I've been on this board, I've never had a doctor's surgery actually come back to extend. So you would kind of think the methodology would be they get more patients, they get more money, they would increase the size of the surgeries. Okay, before I move to the motion, Councillor Jarvis.
Just like to come back on what you said about the doctor's surgery. We did have one some time ago, and it was basically in my ward, where actually a sum of money, I believe it's something like £97,000, was actually specified for the surgery. in the 106 it was worded, maybe Mr. Collinson can expand on that. But do we need to ask the surgery, do you want some money? And get the surgery to request it. So the 106 is more prescriptive of where the money is. If that.
Collinson?
I know the applicant had tried to approach the surgery. We haven't directly. We've approached the NHS and made them aware of the surgery, but had no response from them. The test it's got to be necessary to make the development acceptable and directly related to it. So that's in terms of size, fairly and reasonably related in scale to it. The concern here is, I believe there are other buildings that are unused at the moment, could be used in the village. So it's there is that element that you have to look at as well, because it is only for capital, for actually buildings rather than people.
We would just come back. I think in general, I think we need to be more prescriptive of, and Nick's looking at me now because I've got one ongoing with the police in a similar manner, that the 106s aren't prescriptive enough of what the money is designed for. And then I've got the one in the police one that we're just looking at. There's a sum of money gone to the police, but it's like, here's some money, spend it how you want to. And I think in the 106s, it just needs to be more prescriptive. That here's a sum of money, and in this case, it's to develop the Kingsbury surgery and support the developments. I think it's making 106 is more prescriptive of what the money is designed for and where it should be going, not just chucking it into a general pot and let people decide how to spend it.
Is that possible in the 106? How prescriptive can we be in 106?
It needs to be prescriptive. It's got to be the paragraph 58 of the framework, which I said. It's got to be necessary, directly related. So it would need to be picked up in that agreement, and it can only go to capital. But I think for the police, that's motor vehicles as well that they're looking at in that instance.
So does the fact that we want it brought back here from a 106 perspective, would we be able to look at it on a more prescriptive level?
We've already requested this. The application's been in nearly 6 months already. We've gone to the NHS on a number of occasions and had no response. There's only so much time that you can give those sorts of providers the opportunity. And as I said, currently they're not geared up for requesting SIL compliant obligations.
Okay.
We can only do so much.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it does just seem counterintuitive that you wouldn't think that there's money there, they wouldn't be asking for it. But obviously, like, back to what that's not for us, unfortunately, it's fixed as a planning consideration. We've got a planning application in front of us with a recommendation to approve. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Bell, do I have a seconder?
It's a huge reluctance.
Councillor Ridley, saw your hand first. Do I have any other proposals? Okay, so we only have one proposal, which is to follow the officer's recommendations for approval based on all the things that we said around 106, speed, etc. All those in favour? Any abstentions? Any against? That's 2 against, that's carried. Okay. Right, move on to the next item on the agenda, which is, trying to get through the agenda, which is application 0297, which is land north and south of junction 9 of the M42 that goes into the Litchfield Road. Honestly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This report outlines the council's position of an outline planning application for employment development by Richford Commercial on land to the excuse me, to the south of the M42 junction 9, adjacent to the A446. As the applicant has appealed against non-determination, members are required to confirm the case the council will consider and present if necessary at the public inquiry that's scheduled in May of this year. As you can see from your screen, the proposal covers 2 parcels of greenbelt land, a 19.51 hectare southern southeastern parcel where the employment buildings will be provided. They will be provided up to 20 metres in height, totaling up to 65,000 square metres of B2, B8 floor space. And on the western side of the M42, nearly a 3 hectare western parcel of land for habitat creation and public access. The scheme includes a new access that's shown in purple from the A446. It includes a HGV waiting area, landscaping, drainage, 2 crossing, cycleway and footways, and multiple off-site travel and bus improvements. There's been a wide range of technical reports with the application. The applicant argues very special circumstances, including unmet employment need, lack of alternative sites, and socio-economic benefits. There's an element of greenbelt as well, which I'll come to later. As you can see from the agenda, extensive consultation responses were received on the application. Most statutory consultees raised no objection to the proposal, including subject to conditions, including the Environment Agency, National Highways, Warwickshire Ecology, the local Lead Flood Authority, Fire Services. Warwickshire Highways have not issued a final response so far, but have verbally indicated there's no fundamental objections. Members will see there have been objections from residents, with 65 public objections citing greenbelt harm, traffic, pollution, cumulative development, loss of rural character, and lack of need. There have been 27 letters of support to the scheme, citing job creation, training, and new green space. The report identifies key matters for the planning balance, beginning, as we did last time on the last application, with greenbelt policy. Officers consider that the site is not greenbelt in this instance, and this site strongly contributes to preventing of sprawl and preventing towns from merging. The applicant here does contest this point and considers that it is grey belt and is not inappropriate, whereas officers disagree with this conclusion, and the development here advised by officers is that it is inappropriate development and harmful by definition. You'll see from the report there's an assessment on the openness, and that shows significant spatial, visual, activity-based and permanent impacts. There are also conflicts with 4 of the 5 greenbelt purposes. There are also other harms in terms of landscape and visual effects, and those are judged to have an adverse impact with the large industrial buildings and associated activities, which would introduce a major urbanising influence to an otherwise open agricultural corridor. The development would not conserve or enhance that landscape character and therefore is contrary to the local plan. And there's policies in that in terms of LP1, LP14 and LP30. In terms of highway impacts, these have been largely resolved through modelling and agreed mitigation with the Highway Authority. I'll show you the mitigation. So this is coming up to the junction 9. The scheme includes a new, a 4th lane towards junction 9 of the M42, which would resolve some of the additional vehicle movements. There's also improvements in terms of accessibility for non-motorised people such as cycle pedestrians, etc. The site itself is limited due to its isolated location. However, there are no objections from Active Travel England and National Highways. Bus and active travel measures will provide improvements, but don't fully overcome some policy tensions that are there. In terms of ecology, the ecological assessment confirms that the site isn't designated and the proposals achieve just over a 10% biodiversity net gain through off-site measures to the west side, the west piece of land, and there are no heritage farms identified. In terms of residential amenity, impacts can be controlled through condition. The other harm mentioned in the report is the loss of best and most versatile agricultural land. Officers considered that there is a limited impact here. The applicant's arguments about strategic employment land carry weight, but the report concludes that the benefits do not clearly outweigh the harm to Greenbelt, combined with the landscape, visual and agricultural land loss. And as such, the very special circumstances test is not met, and the development conflicts with the local plan and the NPPF. Had the council been able to determine the application, the recommendation would be one of refusal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collison. So just for clarity for board members, because it's gone to an appeal, we can only be minded to approve or minded to refuse. We still have to go through the appeal hearing. Can I just clarify a point? I don't know if I misheard you, but 8.4 on page 94 of 265, it is Greenbelt.
Yep.
I think you said it's not Greenbelt, but it is Greenbelt. And even when we apply the policies as we have on the previous application, we deem it still to be Greenbelt. That's correct.
Sorry if I wasn't clear. The report concludes that it is Greenbelt and it does not meet the tests of being grey belt. And there are harms in terms it is inappropriate, and there are harms in terms of openness and conflicts with the purposes.
I think I just
apologies
for something I've kind of thought I heard you say it's not Greenbelt, and I know. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, thank you. We've got no speakers on this item, so we'll move straight into the debate. Any comments from any members? Councillor Bell.
Not so little green belt left. And if this is green belt and it's not grey belt, then my goodness, we must protect it. So absolutely, we should be minded to refuse.
Second.
Any other comments from any other member?
Let's refuse it.
Well, I think it's one of those interesting ones, because if you look at many of the things that Mr. Collins has said, we talked about in the last application, many of those things, but when we applied the new national planning framework, which is not, we have to operate under that. It's not where we want to be, but by a long stretch, it was deemed grey belt. This, when you apply those policies, still doesn't meet that criteria, in our opinion, of being grey belt. So hence the recommendation for refusal. Are there any other comments or any other thoughts from any members? Okay, so with that in mind, then, do I have any proposal? Councillor Fowler, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hayfield, thank you. Any other proposals? Okay, so the recommendation is to refuse. We have a proposal and a second. All those in favour? All against? Any abstentions? No, carried unanimously. Right, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next item. The next item is application 0003, which is 1 Morgan Close, New Arley, Coventry.
Chair and members, the application before you concerns 1 Morgan Close, New Arley, and seeks retrospective planning permission for the change of use of the property from a dwelling house to a guest house or short-term let. The property is a 2-storey detached property located in New Arley development boundary, and no physical alteration are proposed as part of the application. The change relates solely to the use of the premises. The matter has been referred to you and to the board due to local member concerns regarding possible noise, parking, impacts on residential character. One neighbour letter of objection has been received, raised during raising issues of amenity, security, and precedent. Having assessed the application, officers highlight that the property continues to operate as one single planning unit. It's occupied exclusively by one group at a time, with no subdivision of the property, and will be no use as a house in multiple occupation. Occupancy is limited to a maximum of 8 persons, a level comparable with that of a larger household and dwelling. Guests typically stay for periods ranging from 1 week to 6 months, meaning that there's no rapid turnover associated with holiday lets. There's been an operating management plan submitted with the application, setting out clear controls on noise, parking, behaviour and waste. Environmental Health have raised no objection, confirming that the waste measures adequately address amenity concerns. There's also no evidence that traffic generation or parking demand would materially differ from a normal house. Likewise, with no external changes proposed, there's no harm to the character of the area. In conclusion, officers are satisfied that the proposed C1 use would not result in harm to neighbouring amenity, character or highway safety, and is in compliance with the local plan. The recommendation is therefore to grant planning permission subject to conditions. If members are so minded to do so, they could request additional conditions that ensure that the property is clearly not to be used as a house in multiple occupation, or similar conditions that make it clear and unambiguous what the use is proposed.
Councillor Jackson, was this the one you wanted to speak on?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I want to make it clear the reason why I specifically requested this planning application for 1 Morgan Close to change the residential dwelling into a C1 guest house to be brought before this board for determination. I did so because I do have significant concerns about the impact that this proposal could have on the character of the area and the residents that I represent. Morgan Close is a quiet, predominantly residential area. It's made up of family homes occupied by long-term residents who value the stability, safety and neighbourly character of their community. The proposal before you represents a material change in use and intensity of the property. A guest house allowing up to 8 guests at a time is simply not a family home. By its nature, a commercial operation and a higher turnover of occupants. Increased vehicle movements, I believe, is much more than 3 parking spaces, up to 8 guests at a time. And fundamentally different pattern of activity. In my view, this does not sit comfortably with the established character of the surrounding area. We also do not have to speculate about the potential impact in other parts of the ward. We have seen similar residential properties converted into short-term lets and Airbnb style accommodation. In a number of these cases, it's led to real ongoing problems for neighbours, including noise disturbances, late night arrivals and departures, and parking congestions, and in some instances, antisocial behaviour. These situations have placed considerable strain on the local residents and required intervention from council officers and at times the police. Residents near 1 Morgan Close are understandably worried about approving this application and could open the door to similar issues in that street. The layout of Morgan Close as a relatively enclosed residential road makes it particularly sensitive to increased traffic, parking pressure and transient occupancy. What might be manageable on a main road or a town centre could wholly be inappropriate on a quiet cul-de-sac designed for family living. I'm not saying that we should be opposing visitors to our local area or resisting to the change. It's about ensuring that the development is appropriate in the scale, nature and location. Planning policy requires to consider the impact on the residential amenity and character of the area. And in my assessment, this proposal risks undermining both. Once a family home is lost to a commercial guest accommodation, it's very difficult to reverse that change. Therefore, I'm asking you to be confident that any such proposal is suitable and will not harm the cohesion of and well-being of the existing community. For those reasons, I'm asking that the planning application be determined by the planning board rather than under delegated powers, so that these concerns could be properly aired and carefully considered. Therefore, I urge members to weigh the cumulative impact of the similar changes in residential areas, the potential for disturbance and the clear concerns raised by my local residents before reaching the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments? Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there's a bit of a contradiction in this application. Although it says it's going to be let as a single unit, it's asking for permission to be a guest house, which of course implies that each room is going to be let separately. So I've got no particular problem with it being let as a single unit and would be happy to approve that. But I would like to see that clarified in the conditions that it can only be let as a single unit and not subdivided in any way.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, it's obviously a retrospective application. Have there been any issues regarding with the neighbours? I know there's only been one objection actually laid down, and that's, I understand that councillors come in and said that there's a lot of concern, but we've only received one objection, I understand. So has there been, do we know, Mr. Collinson, if there's been any new concerns or anything since obviously it's been operating as a guest house?
I'm only aware of the ones that you see in front of you. I'm not aware of how long it's been open and how long it's been retrospective for. So apologies about that.
Thank you. Any more comments from any other members of the planning board? Okay, but I do think Councillor Bell's, it would be good to have some assurances, picking up Councillor Jackson's point as well, is that this isn't let as a HMO, this isn't let to, multiple different individuals, that it is let as a kind of single let, I think was the expression that was used. Can that be built into the condition? Yeah, I think there was some contradiction though, Councillor Bell. I think it was
on the 5 for you, Chair. Under the reasons, should not be used as a house of multiple occupation. That's me.
Yeah. I understand that, but I would be struggled to find the difference between a guest house and a house of multiple occupation in the sense that each room would be let separately. And I think that we just need to be absolutely clear that this is going to be let as a single unit. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, we could build that in, is that possible to have that as a condition? Okay, any other comments? Okay, with that in mind, I'll move to the proposal. We have a proposal to grant.
Post that with that condition.
Okay, councillor Bell proposes it, councillor Fowler second. Are there any other proposals? Okay, we're on the application. All those in favour? Office carries unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next application, which is, we've got two applications, which is 0490 and 0491, which is land south and east of Endurance Park in Tamworth. I will just make a note that this application is for noting only. It's constant.
Thank you, Chair, members. The purpose of this item is to provide an initial overview of the two linked applications at Endurance Park, Tamworth. They're presented for information only, allowing members to familiarise themselves with the site context ahead of fuller determination reports later on this year. Both applications relate to the proposed expansion of the Endurance Industrial Park, formerly known as St Modwens Industrial Park. The estate lies immediately to the south-east of Junction 10 of the M42, adjacent to the A5, as you can see on your plan. Vehicular access to both applications would continue to be taken from the established industrial estate off Trinity Road. You can see that on your plan here, where the red line comes in near the traffic lights off Trinity Road. The first application is 0490, and that is a detailed application for two employment units. Let's see if I can come to the slides that show those here. This is going towards Freesley and is at the bottom end of the site. They're not orientated as you look at it there. That's going towards Freesley. The two units, Unit 9, which is shown there, would provide nearly 9,000 square metres of floor space, and Unit 10 would provide nearly 12,000 square metres. Both are designed for B8, B2 and EG uses, EG 3 uses, which is an offers use, ancillary to those storage and manufacturing uses. Each building is 15.5 metres high, clad in graduated steel sheeting, and is intended to achieve BREEAM Excellent, including roof-mounted solar panels. The development includes service yards, car and HGV parking, cycle and EV spaces, attenuated surface water drainage linking into the existing network, landscaping and earthworks proposed, providing additional screening, particularly towards Freesley to the south. A short section of public footpath would need to be diverted as part of this application, the full application. The second application is an outline application covering a larger 26 hectare corridor of land running along the eastern boundary of the existing estate towards the former colliery soil heap and spoil heap that you can see as you drive along the A5. The scheme is intended to deliver additional industrial and logistics buildings across 6 defined development zones, each prescribed with a maximum height of between 16 to 19 metres. As indicated as well, the access would be by the existing estate road. there are optional layout scenarios, as you can see in front of you. The one on the left-hand side shows smaller development with this linear open space in the middle where the high pressure pipeline would be still retained. This one on the right-hand side shows larger units, and again the pipeline is proposed to be diverted under that requirement if necessary. The outline scheme includes landscaping with new permissive footways encircling the wider site, which is what it does at the moment. An environmental statement covers both applications due to its size and location. It identifies negligible transport impacts on the A5 and N42, acceptable noise and air quality outcomes, no geotechnical constraints, no significant ecological harms. Biodiversity net gain is projected to be substantial across both sites, with 29% and 50%, 29% habitat gain, 50% hedgerow gain on one of the applications, and 19% and 205% respectively on the other. Heritage impacts are assessed as low and only minor and less than substantial in terms of the effects on Freesley Hall and two other listed buildings in the vicinity. Landscape impacts are significant during construction, but acceptable once operational. I'll make the point that I've concluded those are the applicant's views on those rather than officers' views. Finally, members are advised that neither site lies within the green belt or the strategic gap, and that determination of both applications will ultimately depend on the planning balance, assessing policy compliance alongside identified benefits and harms. A site visit is recommended before any final determination is made. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we have two speakers on this item. We have Mr. Dodson against and Mr. Barnes in favour. Mr. Dodson, thank you. Make your way down. Chair? Yeah,
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock when you start speaking and remind you at the 2 minute marker that you've got 1 minute remaining.
Okay, thank you. I think I've got a couple of concerns really. Units 9 and 10 on the detailed application. I think the orientation of that in relation to Freesley is not the optimum solution for Freesley residents who've got to live with this development going forward for future generations. I think whilst the applicant's document suggests that there is no light or noise pollution, I think a more robust solution would be to use the buildings as a barrier to noise and light, and then increase the amount of landscaping within the buffer. I think that would just be a more optimum solution of something that the residents of Freesley could probably live with. And I'd like councillors, certainly when they go and visit the site, to have a look at that in a bit more detail and consider it. And certainly elements of the other scheme, the outline scheme, certainly do put the service yards in that orientation as well. I think one of the other issues that I do have with the scheme, really, it's in the context of the phase 1 development where the landscaping, or it is apparent that not all the landscaping has been maintained to the standard that it should have been, or certainly initially put it in conformity with the original application plans. But a lot of trees have died. There's still some construction fencing on the site. So I think going forward, if the application ultimately was decided, I think there need to be some more robust controls over how the landscaping is maintained, how it's monitored, and how in the future it's replaced at pertinent times. I think, probably resigned to the fact that at some point this will come forward, but I think really we've got to have a look at really what the best way that it can be developed. And I think really at the moment the developers have probably justified, certainly the detailed application, or come up with a scheme that maximises the scheme for themselves really, rather than the benefits really of the surrounding environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? No, okay, thank you very much. Mr. Barnes. Yeah.
You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll remind you at the 2 minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding, and I'll start the clock when you start speaking.
Thank you. My name's Rob Barnes. I'm the planning agent for these applications. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. Mindful that the agenda items for your information rather than determination. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I did, however, want to take the opportunity on behalf of Endurance to convey to you in person our enthusiasm for these proposals and our confidence that the positive, constructive engagement we've had with your officers will continue so that we're back in front of you soon for a decision. You'll have seen that these proposals are essentially an extension of the existing successful Endurance Park development aimed at accommodating a range of employment units, including smaller units, as well as larger ones. We're looking to do this in a way that's consistent with the draft allocation for this site in your emerging local plan, helping North Warwickshire meet as much of its development needs as possible outside the green belt, outside the strategic gap. We've submitted 2 applications because in this case it's the best way to speed up delivery and job creation. A full planning permission solely for the 2 larger units will help us get on site quickly and build those. In parallel with that, we'll be able to work up reserve matters for the units to the east and ensure that they best meet occupier requirements. I did just want to clarify a couple of points from the committee report. It mentions that the buildings in the outline application would range from the tallest being 19 metres maximum at the northern end, down to 16 metres elsewhere. In fact, the southern end of the outline application, the maximum will be 14 metres high. Also mentions job creation. The figures it quotes for this are 179 for the full application and 183 for the outline. But those jobs are jobs created during the construction period. So those are jobs for the building work. Once operational, the full application will create around 400 jobs on sites and the outline about 800. Additional jobs will be supported in the wider economy. Again, thank you for your time this evening. We're really excited about this project and what it offers to North Warwickshire, and I hope to be back here soon when a decision is made.
Thank you. Do I have Councillor Parsons and then Councillor Ridley?
Thank you very much. We've just heard some quite reasonable proposals, I think, from the speaker from Freezing. Sorry, I don't know your name already. But you talked about meaningful sort of dialogue and considerations with our officers. Would you consider some meaningful dialogue with the residents of Freezing on this issue? It seemed to me that a lot that was being said there was being put very reasonably and sensibly, and perhaps would benefit you in terms of consideration with the community there.
Yeah, I made notes from what Mr. Dodson said, and one of the notes I made was about that. What I will do after this, if Mr. Dodson's interested, is take contact details. We'll go to Freezely and talk to people if they want to talk to us about exactly how this will work and what we can do to allay some of their concerns. I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Ridley?
Yeah, I was just going to ask exactly that same question, and I think at Freezely there isn't a village hall or anything like that. So, but I'm sure that the parish council could facilitate something like that if you wanted to do that. But please take Mr. Dodson's contact details and we can assist with that. In relation to light pollution, obviously Endurance is quite a substantial development. I take it that's going to be mitigated in relation to low level lighting towards Freezely. That's been considered. Is that?
Yes. So essentially, for the larger units that Mr. Dodson was talking about, the lighting will be facing east, so not directed towards Freezely. And what we can do with the sort of the green stripe that's to the left-hand side of units 9 and 10. That's there, thank you. Those would be raised and planted areas with landscaping in them to help filter those views as well. But the other things you can do is, for example, not having lights on very tall poles, you have lights on the side of the buildings rather than above the buildings. And there's a bunch of measures that we can do, and we can explain to the local people and hopefully help to allay some of those concerns. So we'd be happy to go and talk that through with Freesley.
Thank you. Councillor Waffles.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I can't turn around at the same time. Just interested in the, obviously you talk about the employment whilst the building's carrying on, but going forward, I'm just wondering what sort of employment gap analysis, if any, you've done. Just because we're aware locally that a lot of the current Birch Coppice employees are actually bussed in from areas like Wolverhampton and Birmingham to fill gaps. So I'm just interested to know what sort of analysis you've done of that going forward. Thank you.
What we found, one of the reasons why Endurance Park was built in the first place, in terms of the existing development, was drawing on the workforce fundamentally from Tamworth. And the policy at the time, a long time ago now, 10 years ago, was part of the purpose of that original commission was to help meet, provide jobs to looking that way rather than necessarily looking east as much. So we see that there's a local workforce there that we can draw from. But yes, there will be people who come from further afield, and particularly the northern parts of Birmingham, I would expect, as well as from North Warwickshire. I haven't got the figures in front of me, but in the supporting socioeconomic statements with the application, there's an assessment in there not just of how many jobs will be created, which are the numbers that I quoted. There's also an estimate in there of how many jobs will be North Warwickshire jobs. So sorry, I've got those images, but that analysis is in there.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think Tamworth would be the same pool of people because of where it's situated. So obviously it's not just about the number of jobs, I think it's the type of jobs as well, because we've made points before with other applications that, especially when we're trying to weigh up larger developments with, some bigger houses and so on, and how the people are being busted because they can't afford the houses that are in the area, and it creates then more traffic on the roads that we mentioned earlier. So it goes round and round in circles. So I'd be particularly interested in seeing this gap analysis and just see what sort of employment and, where you think this is going to, where the people are going to be attracted from. Thank you.
Thank you.
What is that question? Or just
you've got the figures for
no, so you can respond on that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be useful if you could, because that actually feeds to many of the debates we have in this chamber and indeed outside this chamber around North Warwickshire's employment need. What is it? Any more questions for the speaker? No. Yeah, I would just encourage you to meet with the residents when we stop, because they do in principle sound like actually fairly straightforward, and if it's the orientation of buildings that could make a significant difference. And please do take into consideration the comments around light pollution. We're a community that has HS2 at the heart of us, and they're often those sites, even though they're not 24 hours, the light pollution is one that raises significant concerns with our residents on a fairly frequent basis. Thank you very much. Okay, it's moving. I know it's only for noting, but is there any other comments that anybody wanted to make on these two applications? Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. It's obviously the Building Ward. This was originally a significant gap, 2016. North Warwickshire lost an appeal in relation to that. So obviously this is growing. What it's doing is it's helping achieve an employment need that we have within the borough. I think for every Dordon resident, they've got 2.5 jobs from this. There's a bugbear that it is Tamworth Endurance. I think Mr Barnes knows that we would have preferred Dordon, but so that was something else. But I would encourage every board member to try and go on this important site visit, really, because it is Breasley is our really important medieval hamlet with a common, and I do really passionately want to make sure that as much protection for Breasley residents in the Breasley Common is afforded during this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have agreed to arrange a site visit. I'll leave that to Mr. Collison to try and get that in the diary as soon as possible. Any other comments from any other members? Okay, well, the recommendation on this is just a noting. So I'll propose that from the chairs that we note this report. We'll have a seconder. Councillor Hayfield, all in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is application 0549, which is land northwest of Atherstone, Whittington Lane, Atherstone.
Thank you.
And then we have a speaker on this as well. So
thank you, Chair, members. This item introduces an outline application for a major primarily residential scheme, which is an allocated site H2, which is north west of Atherstone off Whittington Lane. The report is for information only. No decision is sought, but members are invited to consider any clarification they may need before determination and to raise issues that the applicant could respond to. In terms of an overview of the application, it's submitted by Stratford Land Limited and seeks outline planning permission for up to 1,440 dwellings and up to 100 bed units of elderly care accommodation. This will include 40% affordable housing, a service centre including primary school, community uses, retail, leisure facilities, and a small canal side commercial unit as the canal runs through the centre of the scheme, through the blue line that I'm trying to put my cursor along there. An important element is its position with the A5, which is down here to the south, south of the scheme, and there's a railway line that comes through the centre here, which is next to Aldi headquarters and FedEx down there. So the other site, in terms of getting context, is H1 here, which is Redrow Homes, to the north east of Atherstone, which is being developed at the moment, off Holly Lane. As you can see, the master plan that's shown there shows a significant sized addition to Atherstone. It proposes a new spine road, which is shown through this dotted line here, through the scheme at a couple of points. That upgrades Whittington Lane and includes both pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, as well as significant green infrastructure around the northern elements of the site. That will include both surface water attenuation by the blue areas that you can see there, as well as some solar and battery energy provision as well. It's an outline application, and with outlines, parts can be considered, and access is being considered here, just at this stage. So that will be key, with comments from both National Highways with the A5 as well as Warwickshire County Council highways as well. This site is large, nearly 89 hectares of mainly agricultural land, as I said, bisected by the Coventry Canal, the West Coast Main Line and further countryside to the west. In terms of access and movement, principal access would be through the new spine road, which is 6.7 metres wide, and that would link down through to the A5 and Old Holly Lane, linking to the H1 allocation up here. Existing canal and railway bridges would be used and upgraded, and a one-way shuttle run, shuttle signal arrangements proposed at Baddesley Bridge to improve safety and enable a footway. Walking and cycle routes are prioritised throughout the layout and direct access to the school, the service centre and canal towpath and neighbouring residential areas. An environmental statement recognises that the distance and existing barriers mean pedestrian and cycle access to the town centre remain challenging, but can be provided along both the canal towpath and existing routes. The scheme includes an overall density of 41 dwellings per hectare, with higher concentrations along the spine road and then dissipating along the edges towards the green areas. The service centre would combine both new builds and refurbishing the existing heritage buildings, which include nursery, village hall and convenience store. It suggests a gym, cafe, restaurants, office uses. The primary school would sit in the northern area too. This is where the local centre would be, within that area there. I don't know whether you can see my mouse. Yeah, just about highlighting that area within the centre of the scheme next to the spine road. So the school and local centre would all be around that area there. Approximately 35% of the total site would be green infrastructure, open space, ecological corridors, etc. Playing pitches are not proposed on site. Instead, the intention is to enhance existing facilities nearby. So contributions would be sought to improve areas along Ratcliffe Road for formal facilities there. In terms of environmental and technical considerations, there's obviously landscape considerations, ecology, heritage, as the site contains Grade 2 listed buildings, and then non-designated heritage assets along the canal as well. The environmental statement concludes there are public benefits to the scheme. Those need to be taken into account in terms of heritage assets. In terms of highways, it is a key issue. Not only construction impacts, but following completion, the traffic modelling as a series of off-site A5 improvements, including works to Holly Lane, Swan Lane and Dordon roundabouts. There's both flood risk, noise and air quality issues and socio-economic effects. In terms of policy context, most importantly, members should note the housing land supply position, and certainly provision of a allocated site is therefore a key consideration and should be supported, though it is subject to compliance with the requirements of H2. The applicant is also committed to a Section 106 agreement covering affordable housing provision, education, health, highways, biodiversity, sports provision, open space, and long-term maintenance of that as well. This is a major complex proposal. I'm sorry I've gone on a lot on it, and we're not near determination, but it's a key consideration that we've got to get right. I could have just spent a minute saying, look at the master plan, but really it's a complex application that we've got to get right of a strategic housing allocation. It's got to be brought forward in a timely manner. Today's purpose is to brief yourselves on it and to invite clarification and to identify the issues there that we can maybe take forward as the applications progresses. Again, a site visit's recommended. It may take a while for that site visit.
Probably feed the ducks first.
We could feed the ducks, go along the canal, look at it from there, look at the sort of important considerations of the A5 as well. We may want to do it briefly touch by looking at it, maybe through Googling images, and then go on site following that as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think this may well require a number of visits. Before I bring people in, we have got a speaker on this item. Is that yourself?
Yes.
You want to move down to the chair, and Sophia will, and then I'll bring Ray. I did see you, and Davina, I'll bring you in afterwards. Yeah. That's...
Good evening. You've got 3 minutes to speak. I'll start the clock when you start speaking, and I'll remind you of the 2 minute marker that you've got 1 minute outstanding.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, a bit nervous.
I'll be nervous.
There seems to have been a common theme that I'm picking up on here, which is farming, food security, roads, speed, etc. I was initially aware of this about 3 years ago when we had a leaflet through the door and there was a consultation process going on at the Red Lion. I found out after then that only a few of the houses and streets near us had actually been leafleted. And when this kind of came up again recently, I sent emails to various people and spoke to Rachel and Taylor about it and said that one of my big concerns was the consultation process had not been long enough or wide enough. There were a lot of people I spoke to within Atherstone and surrounding areas that knew nothing about it. And it doesn't just affect, I live on Wilday Drive, doesn't just affect those close proximity streets and houses, it affects a lot of people because, as you said, the A5 and all the roads around are going to be affected. My main concerns, I think, really are the size of it. It was initially, I think, about 1,300. It's now 1,440 houses proposed. That's got the potential for 2 cars per household, 2,500, 3,000 more cars on the road. That stretch of the A5, that railway bridge, Whittington Lane are already pretty heavily used. Sometimes not possibly, rightly heavily used. It's massive. It really is massive. It's not just another development. It's almost like a mini town. It is huge. If all the things that they want to build happen, schools, leisure centres, blah, 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 it is. It's not just an extension of Atherstone. It's somewhere else. If, as they said to us at the consultation meeting, the schools can't get built, they said they potentially may, they may not. The health centre may not. Then they were talking about paying, money funds and things going to the existing schools and health centres.
1 minute.
Ratcliffe Road surgery. They're bursting at the seams anyway. My big concern, apart from all of the infrastructure, is the arable land, the agricultural land that we are losing everywhere. Farming and food security. As people have said before tonight, once it's gone, it's gone. We don't get it back. Those fields up there every year are alive with skylarks. They are a red listed bird. They are protected under the Countryside and Wildlife Act of 1981. And by that nature, an environmental impact assessment needs to be done on those breeding grounds to make sure that we're not ruining that forever. Because when that's gone, it is gone. The land will be gone for them to breed. The floods will go further down to Grendon, which has been underwater for, days recently. We need to create floodplains, not concrete them. It's huge, and I really ask you to think about this one very, very carefully. If I hadn't come tonight and spoken about this, I don't think I could sleep. So I just wanted to say my bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker?
Just going to say, Whittington's part of the Baddesley and Grendon ward. So it's. I know as a Baddesley Parish Councillor and attending Grendon Parish Councils, we were made aware of this a long time ago.
So people have said to me, but we weren't until
the Merivale Estate parked up the the Philip Blackman, the former estate manager, came to speak to the parish councils about it. It's got to be at least 2 years ago now. So I'm just surprised I didn't speak to folk in Grendon, and Alison rather, because
Yeah, there's quite, I speak to quite a lot of people that knew nothing about it, and when I raised my concerns very recently, I did get an email back to say that the consultation process was going to be extended. I have no idea if it was. I didn't see anything about it.
If you're talking about the current consultation process for our current local plan, there is a view that we will go back out and consult on individual sites. It's probably worth mentioning this is H2 is an allocated site in the previous plan. So that consultation should have been done at the time of that previous, which 2021 was adopted in 2021. So the consultation would have been prior to that. Yeah. Okay. All right.
The first consultation we were aware of was 2023.
Okay, yeah, no, there would almost certainly have been one in 2020 or 2021 around that time. But yeah, it was on the new.
Clarify that. You're talking about two different consultations. One was for H2, whatever it is, and the other one was for this development.
Yeah, but during the local plan, this would have been a call for site. It would have come forward as a call for site. So it would have come as a site that would have been allocated then. And as part of that local plan process, there would have been a Reg 18 consultation.
Yeah, that was when it was allocated as a site. But I think what you're talking about seeing is consultation for an application like this, which aren't quite the same thing.
Yeah,
just to clarify.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you, Nick. I mean, but obviously we're going through the process now. We're going to be talking about this is not a determination for this particular.
No, I know.
And I suspect because of the scale of this, we'll spend quite a lot of time over the coming months talking about this situations. Members will be aware that the A5 is a significant issue for us and a significant concern because we had funding and then we didn't have funding. So, you know, okay. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Aaron. You're very well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Ridley, then Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Jarvis, sorry.
I thought I was in a parallel universe there because I thought Mr. Collinson said there's going to be A5 improvements at Holly Lane, Spon Lane and Dordon Roundabout. I think we had an allocation of 89 million, which I think trebled to whatever my maths should be. And then that was taken away. So how are we going to get improvements at Holly Lane, Spon Lane and Dordon Roundabout without our government funding? Just a question.
You want to respond, Mr. Collinson?
Yeah, this is something in the environmental statement. So this is something that the applicant's indicating. So they will have done work with National Highways and the Warwickshire County Council, and they're proposing improvements on that. Whether that mitigates sufficiently or not is another question, really. But that's the detail of the application includes that.
Thank you. Sorry, Polly, before I bring you in, Councillor, I'm going to bring Councillor Jarvis in because he did put his hand up earlier and I've forgot you. Sorry, Ray.
I don't know, Peter. Can we just ask Mr. Collinson if you could indicate where the river is, please? Just for a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, this is to the north. So around the northern elements of it. So right to the top, going round it. Can you see that the mouse? Yeah.
Yeah, I know where it is. It was just for clarity.
Right. Okay.
Of where the river actually is.
Yeah. So that is where the floodplain will be as well.
Yeah.
Hence, that's where a lot of the open space is. And
I mean, it's. If I could just continue, I mean, I went to the meetings that were alluded to, both at the Red Lion, and there was also one in the Market Square around the same time that there was a heck of a lot of people that were involved with it. My concerns was, I don't know what Bernadette's just said, whose ward it's in. I think it's on the edge of mine, but probably on the edge of yours as well. So it's somewhere between. But I think the access to it at the moment is one of the big concerns, because if you look at the way down Old Holly Lane, the railway bridge there is nowhere near satisfactory for the traffic that's there at the moment. And it's a bottleneck. I mean, at the time, going back 2 or 3 years, there was talk about putting a pedestrian bridge at the side of the existing bridge so that the full width of the existing bridge could be used for traffic. That was one of the suggestions that was there. I don't know where it came from, but that was one of the suggestions that were there, because the rail track was saying, no, you can't do it because we'll have to shut the railway for too long. But one of the easy ways around it was to put a pedestrian bridge at the side and just use the full width of the existing bridge for traffic. Looking at the rest of it, I mean, and if I can go on to education, and I think I've said this on other applications, that there's a primary school there, but when the kids reach year 7, where do they go? Because there seems to be, they acknowledge that there's children up to the age of 11, but at the age of 11, they seem to fall off a cliff because there's no succession planning for their schooling. And if I can just say that the school that in Atherstone, the TQEA, last year, and this is a figure that's been indicative of several years, last year there was 302 applicants for 165 places, which indicates that school, as it is still nowhere near big enough to accommodate what we've already got. And to put another 1,500 houses and take into account the 600 over the road from it, so somewhere in the region of 2,000 houses, is a big strain on the schools that already can't cope. And say it's great putting the primary, that is acknowledging that there's children, but then when they reach year 7, where do they go? They just disappear because there's no accommodation for it. And I think, again, looking at the 106s, that the 106s are retrospective. They're always after the event. So you'll put all the kids there and then you put a school there later. Where do the kids go of the first lot that's already there? I find it was difficult to see the logic behind it. And finally, I'll say with the 106s on this is another one where we've got to be very, very careful and prescriptive where the 106s go to. And, consult local members, because we're the ones on the ground that know where the shortfalls are. We talk to residents, we are residents, and we could help construct the 106 in a way that, one, it helps the big picture, it helps the developer, but it also ensures that this development doesn't create other problems.
Fair enough. And the only comment I would make on that, and Margaret and I will know because we had this conversation multiple times at County Council, education is a County Council responsibility. So we'd need to engage with them as a statutory constituency. You would like to think that they would consider this. Unfortunately, as Margaret and I heard firsthand, the Department for Education don't work like that, unfortunately.
I've tried it myself.
So,
you might as well talk to that empty cup there because there's no response from it.
Councillor Hayfield, bring it.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the speaker talked about it being a sort of mini town. I'm not quite sure about town, but certainly at 1,440 houses, it's bigger than half the villages in North Warwickshire. So it's going to have a substantial impact. It'll have a substantial impact on the existing town of Atherstone, and it will have. We have to consider what it's going to be like living there. I mean, 2.4 says, it sounds grand, doesn't it? The site is located within 2 kilometres of the town centre, where there is a wide range of local services and facilities, as well as public transport provision, bus and rail, blah, 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 blah. 2 kilometres away. I mean, some of you are fitness freaks, and perhaps you'll happily jog into Atherstone. Some of us that are reaching a more mature age are going to have to get a car out. And I suspect there's going to be an awful lot of car journeys from people living on this area, this estate, into Atherstone. So is a car parking provision going to be? We need to look very carefully at the impact, as well as what it's going to be like living there. as to Ray's bit about the secondary education, look, it's simple. It's really simple. You want a shift system. So you have one set of kids going in between 9 and 12, and then they go home, and another set of kids come in between 12 and 3. And therefore you instantly double the school population of the QE. Simple.
I can recall writing to you when you were portfolio holder for education.
So before bringing back in Councillor Ridley, I had some time design. I saw Councillor Dervix. Was there any other on this side that I think Councillor Dervix?
I visited Morocco a few years ago. and that is exactly the system that they used for their schools there. So they went on till about 8 o'clock at night. And it was not a popular system. But something has to be done. Education is a concern over this. Atherstone School is oversubscribed. They are building at this moment to increase the size of it, but that is not going to be enough to deal with a new tranche of pupils coming along with the completion of the development like this. We've got to really push for that to be increased. The border between Brendan and the Atherstone ward is actually along Holly Lane, because I used to be the county councillor for it. I know exactly where it is, and it is right up against the other side of Aldgate. So it is of real concern to everybody around that area, both sides of Holly Lane, and much wider afield than that. As far as the roads are concerned, we hear on this that the developer is going to, or suggesting that they will improve 3 traffic islands. And that is wonderful news. But what happens to the bit in between the islands? It doesn't actually improve the flow of the traffic. If anything, it slows it down. So a lot more work needs to be done to try and persuade the government that this is something that they need to invest in. We decided some time ago that it's necessary. Other projects have trumped it, for want of a better word, and investment has gone to other road projects. We all need to work together to push for that investment to come back to this area of the A5.
Thank you. Yeah,
I can see that we're going to get another comment about a school in Atherstone.
I'm not going to look over there. Councillor Ridley first, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I think you need about, Mr. Constant probably knows, between 5,000 and 7,000 houses to generate a new senior school. So, careful what we wish for, but effectively, we've got a housing land supply shortfall. We have a housing land supply shortfall. Cannot stress enough that we need to build houses. We need to build houses in the right place, but we need to build houses in the right place with the right infrastructure. So plan, be careful with what we're concerned about schools, education, transport, especially, obviously, because of the funding being pulled by the A5. But actually, this week, the last 3 months, flooding has been awful. Flooding, the water flows straight down from Atherstone down into Grendon and Polesworth. Polesworth has been unpassable. They've put the barriers up again. Grendon, Spon Lane, the B5000 was again unpassable. You know, we really, really have to consider what is happening. And this large site will need some very, very careful planning in order to deliver it. And a site visit is going to be essential.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few site visits, to be fair. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to come back on what Councillor Dervick said about the new build that's going on at the school. It does not increase the capacity of the school. it maintains the capacity of the school, and it removes the 6 porter cabins that are there currently. And the 6 porter cabins that are there currently, their planning approval expires, I think it's on the 31st of this month, is it, Skyson? So it, just so the board's clear, it's not an extension to the school. It is maintaining.
I never claimed that, just to be clear.
No, but I'm just saying, you said it was an extension to the school.
I'm going to move this on. I'm going to move this on.
Replacing the existing cabins.
Mr. Waffles.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and if they were thinking of putting the children in Polesworth School, having spoken to the school recently, well, not only that, but they have no capacity to build, so they can throw as much money as they want, but they have no safe site to expand their capacity, despite them wanting to potentially, but they just physically have not got the capacity on that site. They would have to move the school to do that. And that was what they quoted to me. So that's not a possibility either.
No.
Just saying.
Thank you. I mean, I think there's going to be lots of debate about this whole application over a long period of time. But as I say, it is an allocated site. It was allocated back in 2021 as one of those sites. So we just need to have careful consideration about the implications of such a large site, because it is a large site. There's no two ways about it. On the local residents, local community, local infrastructure, and all of those things that have been spoken about. Okay, I mean, it was for noting and arrange a site visit. So I will, I'll move it from the chair. Councillor Hayden Phillips, thank you. Second. Any other proposals? Okay, all those in favour? That's carried. Right. Thank you very much.
I think you'll need a helicopter for the site visit.
All waders.
All waders.
Okay. I'm going to move us on to the application of the leisure centre.
Thank you.
Again, this is just for comment and
Just for
review.
noting.
Yeah, just for noting.
The application on this came in on Friday. We're currently going through the registration of the application. It's for the demolition of the existing Memorial Hall and Leisure Centre and redevelopment of that with a new leisure centre. Most people know where the site is, so that is the Memorial Hall there and the Leisure Centre building, which then backs onto Croft Road. The scheme itself would demolish both of these and provide a replacement in a similar position to the existing Leisure Centre building, with the area where the Memorial Hall to be left open. The designs you see in front of you are emerging through a period of pre-application consultation with residential and adjacent properties. It shows on the top plan is the 2-storey element, which will include gym and multifunctional area space within this element. Within the right-hand side will be the wet facility, so to speak, in terms of the new swimming pool. The bottom photo shows the pool facility and the side elevation with plants on top of it. And this, the elevations here show those fronting properties on Croft Road at the top. And again, mainly the bottom one shows Croft Road, where where at the moment cars are parked along this area. Quite an open elevation there, but certainly visually it provides articulation of the wet side and the 2-storey element there in terms of the design. So this shows the layout. Again, looking from the front, so you've got the main pool, learner pool, changing rooms on the right hand side with the plant room to that, and on the left hand side shows the replacement community hall. the entranceway on the way in, which sticks out to the front, so it provides a prominent sort of landmark feature, an activity zone to the rear with changing facilities there. And that is it.
Thank you very much. I mean, hopefully everyone in this chamber is familiar with the proposal and how it's progressing. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you, actually. Thank you to the officers and to our contractors and actually to members who've been having fortnightly meetings to get this through in such a quick time. It's been a very tight timescale, and the planning application, as I said, went in on Friday on time. So thanks, and also thanks to the Friday group, the Friday afternoon planning geeks, who have improved through their comments the elevations onto Croft Road, and I think they look much better than they did. They looked a bit like IKEA to start with, so we've done quite a lot of work on that. So just it's a very fast-paced project. So far we're on time, so thanks to everybody involved.
Thank you, Councillor Davies.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank people that have been involved in this. I've been very pleased to pass on comments that local residents have made about the proposed development. There were quite a lot of people who were very unhappy about the original design and made representation about that. And it's been really pleasing to work with officers and architects, really, passing those comments on and being able to go back to residents and to say things have been changed. There'll be a new set of consultation with different ideas on, and this has changed a lot since it was first started. I think every resident that I've talked to has acknowledged the need to have a new facility here, and although they may not be totally happy with what is being proposed, they can see the need for it. So, thank you very much.
Councillor Whipples.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo the thanks to the officers. Every 2 weeks when we meet, they always meet the deadlines, don't they? We throw lots at them each fortnight, and they, without fail, come back with it every 2 weeks. So they are working tremendously hard. So I feel that acknowledgement. I would like to propose this, but just before I do, I think the Atherstone councillors would like a final something going on at the Memorial Hall before it's demolished, I believe. So can we just note that before the wrecking ball goes in? Can
That's already.
okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. So I will propose this. Thank you.
Thank you. The report was for noting. We've got a proposer. Any more comments or do you have to second that? Councillor Bell second. All those in favour? That's carried. Okay, final application in open session. We have application 0074, which is the land between Stonehouse Lane and Daffins Wood, Spring Hill, New Arley. Constance. Oh, that's you, Erica, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, Erica.
My big moment. Yeah, we're on a roll with applications for information only tonight, and mine is no different. So the report provides members with an overview of an outline planning application that is submitted by Summits Limited for residential development of up to 220 dwellings. And it is on a 10.2 hectare site in a greenbelt location west of New Arley. The purpose of the report is just to introduce you to the proposals, and a later determination report will be brought to members. So in terms of the site and its context, the site comprises 2 agricultural fields that are bounded by Spring Hill to the west, Daffin Wood, which is a local nature reserve and an ancient woodland, to the east, Industrial units lie to the north, and existing housing lies to the south of the site. The land slopes northwest, and contains hedgerows, trees, and a public right of way, which is M444. There's an overhead power line that traverses the site as well. New Arley's primary school, shops, open spaces and community facilities lie 750 metres from the site, and Old Arley is 500 metres to the north. The site is entirely within the Greenbelt. So the proposals, as I said, are in outline. All matters are reserved except for access. And there are 2 new vehicular T-junction accesses that are proposed onto Spring Hill, plus an emergency access. The applicant has submitted a suite of parameters plans, which establish the developer's position. So there's a landscape framework that has been submitted, which would nominate 35% of the site as open space. It would include a 15-metre buffer to Daffins Wood, and the retention of hedgerows and the public footpaths. It indicates density and height with primarily up to 35 dwellings per hectare, but it would be lower along the northern edge. And it would maintain building heights of 2.5 stories centrally, and two stories along Spring Hill and near the industrial units. And then thirdly, there's a movement and access sort of parameter plan. So new pedestrian and cycle routes would be proposed, and it would include improved connections to Spring Hill and towards the school. An illustrative master plan has been submitted, and that shows 220 homes could be accommodated, with 50% of those homes being affordable housing. So the application is accompanied by a number of technical assessments. So in relation to transport, the applicant's submission indicates that the County Council has agreed the scope of the transport assessment, and it concludes that the impacts are judged not to be material, with no off-site mitigation required. Pedestrian and cycle improvements and traffic calming are proposed. In respect of flood risk and drainage, the applicant's submission indicates that the site's in flood zone 1, and that surface water is proposed to be managed through 2 drainage catchments with swales, attenuation basins and a tank, and discharges would be to the local sewer and the Bourne Brook. In respect of noise and odour, the proposals suggest a 3-metre noise barrier to be near the industrial units, and it concludes that odour impacts from the development are negligible. In respect of ecology, it establishes that there were no protected species that were found, and for ecology, they propose significant mitigation. Biodiversity net gain of 19% in area and 22% linear gain is estimated, and again the 15-metre buffer to Daffins would be maintained. There would be some loss of roadside trees for access, but key tree belts would be retained. Then in terms of ground conditions, the ground conditions were found to have low contamination risk. And it was established that no shallow mine workings were present. Then finally, in respect to the technical documents, the landscape and visual assessment leads the developer to conclude that the impacts from the development will be localised and that the development would read as an extension to the existing settlement. So the report sets out the planning policy position. So as I said earlier, that the site is in the green belt, and as with earlier applications that were presented to you this evening, you're aware that the NPPF introduced the concepts of grey belt. The applicant argues that this site is grey belt and that the development is not therefore inappropriate under the new policy tests. And this will form a major part of the determination report when it comes back to you. But in section 6 of the report that you have in front of you this evening, the observation report walks you through how we would go about making that green belt assessment, how the report would be structured in terms of ascertaining whether or not the site is grey belt as the applicant maintains. So in terms of the applicant's position in weighing up benefits and harms, the applicant acknowledges limited landscape harm and some tree and hedgerow loss. But on the benefits side, the applicant suggests the provision of market and affordable housing, open space, biodiversity gains, local highway improvements and potential section 106 contributions support their proposal. So as with earlier applications on the board, the next steps are that the members are invited to note the report, to raise queries about the proposal, and that a site visit be undertaken before determination. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you. Daffodils Wood is ancient woodland. At the moment, it is next to, so there is a good ecological corridor linking it to the countryside. I find it quite disturbing that a development like this doesn't make greater provision to maintain a corridor through. When you look at the plans that are suggested, there is very little that leads through that site from Daffodils Wood to the countryside floor. If you go to page 235, you can see that they're suggesting new built environment practically closes off any corridor that might exist. And I think that we should try to ensure that we don't end up with a bottleneck through that that prevents the access of wildlife through to Daffodils Wood. Because whatever words we use, if we don't maintain that sort of access, Daffodils Wood will no longer exist in a few years' time. It will deteriorate because of the lack of wildlife access to it, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Hayfield.
Thank you, Chair. This could have a significant impact on the infrastructure of the Arleys. It's a while since I was a councillor for this area, but Old Arley's got the leisure centre, obviously, it's got the surgery now, and it has the wagon load of line that I think still exists, but I don't think it's got a shop or anything. And as for New Arley, it's got a couple of shops, but the pub there's closed. It's that's not the what's it going to the Fir Tree? Is that closed now? Yeah. The Miners Welfare Club closed donkeys years ago. The Honey Pot closed. It's got very little now, and another chunk of population I just don't think they've got particularly good, certainly social infrastructure and commercial infrastructure in Arley. Sue will know, comment better than me on that, but I just think it's a big chunk of housing to throw at Arley.
Yeah, I will bring Sue into the conversation, but it's a recurring theme that we have had in this planning board a number of times. Yes, there is a requirement to build houses under the new national planning framework, and they have to go somewhere, and unfortunately, it's always a difficult decision. Councillor Gilmont.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to I was going to say exactly the same as Councillor Dervix and exactly the same as Councillor Hayfield with regards to the infrastructure not being there. I mean, it's quite well populated already, New Arley, and there's not enough facilities as there are. So to put in another 220 plus houses, that's quite concerning. We're back to the situation that we are with regards to Kingsbury again, where you just don't have enough environment infrastructure around you to support that. And then with regards to Councillor Dervick's comments about Dafflin's Wood, absolutely agree with you again. Some kind of provision needs to be considered there, I think, when it comes to determination to ensure that people still have access to that beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I just clarify that? It's not just people.
Animals, wildlife. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. As I say, it's for noting at this stage. I know there's been lots of residential comments already. Councillor Parsons.
I agree. I mean, yes, drawing attention to Dafflin's Wood and the wildlife corridors. You've also got a problem of the housing very close to the wood and domestic cats. In a sense, you have to look at preventing that aspect because domestic cats can wipe out your wildlife, take a terrible toll, basically. We've had a similar problem with the development at Roby's Lane, and moats and things about to be considered from that point of view, where you have houses and woodland and wildlife. The domestic pets can be, well, have a dramatic impact on what is the wildlife there.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say something?
A little something, if that's okay. Thank you for letting me speak. I was just going to briefly say that obviously extending Arley by 26% is going to have a serious impact on the local infrastructure. The schools are oversubscribed. It says in the report that there's Jelly Beans Nursery that has now closed, so we have no nursery provision in the Arley at all at the moment. And obviously the GP surgery is not coping as it is at the moment. So they're just points that I'd really like to reiterate at this stage. But obviously I'd be keen to see the site visit go ahead and then obviously have more to say again. But thank you.
Thank you. So recurring themes. Councillor David.
Oh, thank you. I think with all there's a theme going through loads of stuff tonight, and I've got quite a loud voice to Veman. It's the same theme going through all of the applications that have come through this evening. Is infrastructure, schools, doctors' surgeries, and no matter how many houses we need all the other stuff as well. And I think with the Dordon, the Whittington application, that they put in when the A5 was going to be done. So the planners probably thought, oh, we'll jump on the back of that and get the bits done while the A5's being done. But with all of the applications, it's the same problem.
So it's a recurring theme. Yeah, I think it's worth just dropping Councillor Watson. Make the comment. This is not where we want it to be as a planning authority. The pressure is on, and not having a local plan. It leaves us susceptible to many of these applications, which is why it's so important the work we're doing on the local plan to get the new local plan in and adopted by the end of the year. Councillor Watford.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, going further from that, I think, is there any way that we can speak to county, speak to highways, have a look at this as a overall situation rather than pockets in silo? Because as you've rightly raised, we've all raised tonight, keeps coming up the same thing, and you know it's being batted off because I think they can kick it down the road to the next school or the next GP, and they're suffering as well.
That's right. That's fine. That's fine.
Right, you,
What I'll do is I'll give you the reminder at 2 minutes and then we can see how it goes.
right, push and speak. Can you
Yeah,
give
if
me
you push and then start speaking.
Right. Am I speaking? Right, hello, good evening. Right, I represent a Arley Rural Preservation Group. A significant number of concerned residents. And we recognise that this information is an only meeting. However, having reviewed the submitted material, residents remain concerned that several key elements are not yet sufficiently evidenced from the report. First, this site lies within the designated green belt, while the application asserts reliance on grey belt provisions. It is not clear from the documentation how the site has been robustly assessed against the statutory green belt purposes, nor has it been demonstrated that the land makes only a limited contribution. We would respectfully request a clarification as to what independent assessment has been undertaken and how members will be provided with a clear, objective evidence on this point. Also, if I could say that Summits, the owner of the land, has owned the land since 2017, which is nearly 10 years. And therefore, I would like to understand how Summits has not come forward with a housing application. I would question that their motive behind actually requesting for this housing development. Secondly, the 5-year housing land supply position is central to the planning balance. The application advances a position, but it is not evident that this has been independently verified or reconciled with the council's most recent figures. We are asking that the members are provided with an up-to-date, transparent and fully evidenced housing supply assessment before any rate is applied in decision making. Thirdly, in respect of ecological, there appears to be a survey gaps and uncertainty as to whether all recommendations assessments are completed prior to submission. I would also like to say that the ecological assessment was done in the winter, and therefore it doesn't really give a balanced view of what really goes on in that habitat there. So the ecological impact assessment within the core documentation needs to have some sensitivity around the surrounding areas, as everybody around this speakers in this room have alluded to. Fourthly, the highways and access remains unresolved in the minds of many residents. The proposal for 2 access points onto the Spring Hill raises legitimate questions regarding safety and visibility. And it is also mentioned that there's a scope, it wasn't actually accepted as clear and accepted. And fifthly, we mentioned Davins Wood is identified as an ancient woodland. Local wildlife site, ancient woodlands is afforded the highest level of protection in national planning policy as an irreplaceable habitat. The buffer zones alone do not eliminate the risk of indirect impacts. I have a library of animals and wildlife that has that habitates that area there. Finally, that the application relies upon claim benefits, including housing provision and infrastructure contributions. However, the report does not certain remains. However, the report indicates that certain benefits remain subject to further consultation and agreement. The weight attached to the benefits in a planning balance should reflect the certainty and deliverability. And our position is not emotive, it is evidence-based, and at present the evidential foundation for several key assertions appears to be incomplete. We would respectfully request that these matters are fully transparent and independently evidenced in any future officer's report before the application progresses towards determination. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Speaker? Mr. Collison, did you want to respond? Because I know a number, or Erica even, I know a number of those we will evidence, how do you determine grey belt versus green belt, etc. etc.
Some key points there. I'm sure the speaker will have heard the Kingsbury application where is evidence the assessment, and this includes about how we would evidence whether it be green, the assessment of grey belt, etc. As we've done on the Kingsbury application. In terms of the second point about 5-year supply, not everyone knows about the rigorous assessment that's recently been carried out as part of a planning inquiry. But we're certainly going to meet with residents, and we can go through these points and explain the evidence that we have at this point in time. For the other matters in terms of ecology, highways, the impact on Daffins Wood and infrastructure, a lot of this comes through consultee advice from the county council or other interested parties along the way. So at the moment, this is for information because we don't have all the consultation responses, but certainly the speaker can look at our website and look at the responses as they come through from the statutory consultees, because those are made public, and you can view those responses as you go along, and certainly pass that on to other residents as well. When we come down to the planning balance, we'll gather that all together and come to a recommendation, as we did on the Kingsbury application. But yeah, for the moment, we haven't got a conclusion.
Could I respond to that? Obviously, we've been sitting here for the last 2-3 hours listening to all of your applications being made there, but and I think you mentioned at the last point regards to the knock-on effect to other boroughs and what have you. I think from just a normal public person, living, normal Joe, this sounds more like a moral law that's going on here, which is going to impact everybody rather than just ticking a box and saying it fits a law with regards to the MPF and whatever it does. I think we need to look a bit wider regards to the moral law and the impact that these developers are having on what could be exploitation of this green belt, grey belt, whatever they call it, and the knock-on effect to others, and what you people being developer led to make decisions that are not really in the best interests of your constituencies or residencies. And I just want to make that point.
Thank you.
I mean, just to respond to that, what I can assure you is every member around this chamber does their damnedest to try to represent their residents, despite the policy, the National Planning Framework policy that we have to adhere to. But it is a point well made. I think you would find many people around this chamber who have concerns with the current National Planning Framework and the way it positions us as a planning authority. Any other comments? But thank you for that, and so apologies for the confusion. But say the report was to note in, and many of the points you raised will become more transparent, and as the report goes through by termination, green versus grey, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so we'd already actually moved that, so I'm now going to move us to the last point in open session, which is the infrastructure funding statement, which is agenda item number 6. Mr. Collison.
Thank you. We have to produce one of these every year. I'll not dwell on it too much, but certainly paragraphs 2.2 and 2.3 of the report at page 242 identifies the key receipts that we received. 462,000 towards affordable housing and around £162,000 towards open space provision. A lot of this money has gone to, in terms of affordable housing, has gone to the purchasing new builds at Bloor Homes and in Atherstone, and conversion of the property in 102 Long Street to affordable homes, and open space and recreation expenditure in a number of wards, including Boot Hill in Grendon, together with improvements at Mansetta and Ansley. Table 4, there's a little bit of confusion, sorry, with it indicates the committed spend. Table 4 at the very end, it's probably not clear. There aren't any additional funds that aren't committed. Every bit of money that we've got is committed to something. So the very last line of that table 4 indicates whether there's something else there. There isn't. Every bit of money that we have as a local authority is committed to something, whether it's affordable housing, transport, open space, etc. But this will be, if you're following the recommendation, this will then be then published on our website and taken forward, and we'll do the same again next year. And when we find out what additional funding is coming our way.
Thank you. I will, yeah, I'll come to you. So just on that point, because we raised it at the conversation, it looked like there was no more money, but it's not that there's no more money, it's that it's not been, all the money we have has been allocated.
Yeah.